I have other paper.
Hi. I'm calling this meeting to order at 5:32. I would like to welcome anybody who is attending virtually. Do we know if we have anyone? Dan? Is there anybody who's joined virtually? No. Do we just carry on? Go. Okay. I'm reminding everyone that this is simply a meeting to present and review the proposed budget for the 2021 school year, and the annual meeting will follow this meeting at 6 p.m. Mr. Clerk, if you could, Dr. Clerk, if you could read.
Yes, hold on, please. You got that?
Blue words. Oh,
Yes.
yes, that's it.
Yes, notice is hereby given, correct?
That's correct.
It's hereby given to the qualified electors of the Salem School District that the budget hearing will be held at the Salem School District on the stage in the cafetorium with seating in the LGI and the cafeteria on the 27th day of October at 5:30 p.m. The summary of the budget is printed below. Detailed copies of the budget are available for inspection in the district office at 8828 Antioch Road, Salem, Wisconsin, 53168, and this is dated this 22nd day of September 2020, signed Stephen Brown, District Clerk.
Great, then I turn this meeting over to Dr. Valenza, District Administrator.
All right, so this is set up maybe a little differently than it was in the past. There's first kind of a budget hearing, and really this is a little more informal process for people in the community, electors in the community, to ask specific questions about the budget. So even though later on when we go into the annual meeting, we'll be talking about last year's budget and this year's budget, this is really just to talk about what's being projected for this year's budget. If there were people here who wanted to ask questions, they would be able to do so, but it doesn't look like we have electors. Certainly as board members have questions of the budget, they may do so. In the 2020-21 budget summary, one of the questions that tends to come up is, you're already into the school year quite a ways. Why are we doing the budget now? I mean, shouldn't you be doing a budget much earlier than this? The problem with that is there are some pieces of information that are required in order to actually finalize the levy of a proposed budget. So in other words, yes, we do some pre-planning, but in order to actually finalize the budget for the year, there are pieces of information that we need to get that we have not been able to assemble until just recently. Number one being the third Friday student membership count, very crucial in terms of setting the levy. The summer school membership count is a piece of information that's needed. Hold harmless declining enrollment exemption, that will be a new one for us this year, or at least in a significant amount, which we'll be talking about a little later, because we did have a significant decline in student enrollment. Very similar to pretty much every other district in the state as it relates, for example, to COVID. There needs to be added the private school voucher amount. There is an amount drawn from each district's levy to cover the cost of the private school voucher program. Property valuation, and that usually comes in right about October 15th, somewhere in there, Susan?
Yes, along with the state aid.
And then state aid. So those pieces you have to have before you can actually finalize your budget. Susan, I'm going to turn it over to you just to talk about the major highlights of the budget, but as you look at the slide, you can see the little arrows will tell you if that's an increase or if it keeps it at pretty much where it was at or where we're expected to be.
Our beginning fund balance for 2021 is actually at a good place. It's around 15%, over $2 million, and a lot of this is due to shortages in the supply chain issues. We had ordered curriculum and technology pieces, Chromebooks, et cetera, that did not come in until August, so we could not put them into the previous year. So that ended up in the fund balance, and then we will spend them in the 2021 school year. Our increase in revenues is due to the revenue limit increase that went up a little bit, state aid increase, and of course the increased amount of referendum that we received this year, which is at $3 million, whereas last year it was $2,570,000. And then the total expenditures increased as well to balance the budget. Increased staffing, PPE, technology related to the pandemic and virtual learning, new reading curriculum, and the maintenance projects. So ending with the same fund balance that we started out. This is the first time in all my time here that we've ever had a balanced budget. So as we're predicting, we're hoping that all of the revenues will cover all of the expenditures for this year. So that is very hopeful. The general fund increased a bit due to all of the staff that we had to hire. We hired quite a few temporary substitutes, teachers, support, health office, and there is expected a 28% increase in the health insurance. Special projects fund increased, and that's generally mostly special education fund, which had some instructional and support and insurance increases, but we also added the student activity accounts to this fund. The student activity accounts used to be in a Fund 60, which is strictly a liability account fund, but due to GASB 84 rules on fiduciary accounts, we had to put it into either Fund 10 or Fund 21. The majority of those transactions went into Fund 21 so they could be separated and carry a balance from year to year. If we had put them in Fund 10, it would have been either you use or lose. Debt service, we paid off the capital improvement fund from the 2011 building referendum, and only the energy exemption borrowing remains. So that went down a deal, $330,000. And then food service increased due to the summer food program utilization. That was what the USDA put in place in March when the state was shut down, and it allows all children age 18 and younger to have free breakfast and lunch. We had pickup during the time that we were shut down, and now we can actually serve the summer food program in the schools for the students that are in attendance, and outside pickup as well. We offer that Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9:30 to 10:30 over in the bus parking lot, door 15. And there's, later on in the program, we can show you how you can contact the food service personnel to pick that up as well. But due to it being offered as a free breakfast and lunch to all children, it has increased the amount of revenues as well as the amount of expenditures. The capital projects fund we put in there as no anticipated expenses this year. That depends a lot on the facility study and what comes out and what the board decides to do with additional funds that we put in the capital projects fund. And then of course the gross total expenditures are up from what they were the previous year, but due to the property valuations going up, the mill rate is actually going to go down. We had predicted that it was going to be 7.25 with the original pieces that we put into the revenue limit worksheet. But now that we have the final pieces in there, it's going to be 7.31, which is still going down from the previous year of 7.48. So the individual taxpayer will pay less per valuated property taxes.
Per $1,000 of valuation. Yep. So again, this is just kind of a brief overview. We'll talk about the different areas a little more in depth in the annual meeting, but it is an opportunity then at this point for any of the community member electors that would be present to ask questions that they may have about the budget.
Anybody over there? Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
Great, then I move to adjourn this meeting at 5:42. All those in favor?
Aye.
Good evening. I call this meeting to order at 6 o'clock p.m. I welcome everybody who is in attendance. Just a friendly reminder that only those who are residents of the district may vote this evening. And, okay, so I am going to appoint Steve Brown as secretary. And he is already warned and excited about it.
I am.
And I call for nominations for a chairperson.
I nominate Dana Powers as the chairperson.
Second.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Continuing. Could you please, Steve, read
Yes.
the notice for the annual meeting?
I'm sorry, I was getting ready to read the minutes. Yes.
This, right
I'm sorry, I was on the wrong
here.
page.
Yep, that one, the blue in the middle.
Blue in the middle. Yes. Here's the notice for the annual district meeting. Notice is hereby given to qualified electors of the Salem School District that the annual meeting of said district for the transaction of business will be held at the Salem School District on the stage in the cafetorium with seating in the LGI and the cafeteria on the 27th day of October 2020 at 6 p.m. Stephen Brown, District Clerk.
Steve, could you please read the annual minutes from last year, October 7th, 2019?
Yes. Annual School District Meeting Minutes, October 7th, 2019, 7 p.m. Salem Grade School, Large Group Instruction Room, LGI. The meeting was called to order by Dana Powers at 7 p.m. Dana Powers appointed Shane Gerber as the secretary of the meeting. Election of chairperson of the meeting. The floor was open to nominations for chairperson. Nick Poloni nominated Dana Powers as chairperson and was seconded by Lisa Hines. A voice vote was taken and the motion carried. Shane Gerber, clerk, read the notice of the meeting. Shane Gerber, clerk, was asked to read the minutes of the annual meeting of October 1st, 2018. Nick Poloni, Steve Brown motion to approve the 2018 annual meeting minutes. A voice vote was taken and the motion carried. Next item, Lisa Hines, treasurer, read the report of the auditor for the 2017-2018 school year. Steve Brown and Nick Poloni motion to approve the 2017-2018 audit report. A voice vote was taken, motion carried. Dana Powers, chairperson, asked Lisa Hines to present the treasurer's report for 2018-2019 school year. Lisa Hines read the treasurer's report. Lisa Hines, Steve Brown motion to approve the 2018-2019 treasurer's report. A voice vote was taken, motion carried. Dr. Connie Valenza, interim district administrator, presented the district academic progress report. Next item, Dana Powers, chairperson, asked Lisa Hines, treasurer, to present the 2019-2020 budget. Lisa Hines asked Susan Jarvis, business manager, to discuss the budget and address any questions from the audience. Susan Jarvis then led a discussion of the proposed tax levy. Motion for the tax levy for the 2019-2020 school year by ballot. Steve Brown and Shane Gerber motion that there be levied a school tax assessed against all taxable properties within the district in the sum of $7,200,317 necessary to operate and maintain the Salem School District system, and to finance the recommended budget for the 2019-2020 school year. 3 residents were appointed to tabulate the written ballots: Nick Poloni, Steve Brown, Shane Gerber. Votes were tabulated, presented by Shane Gerber. The levy was approved by a vote of 8-0. Other business, Board of Education salary, Lisa Hines and Nick Filoni motion that we pay each board member $100 for every monthly regular board meeting attended. A voice vote was taken, motion carried. Board of Education mileage, Shane Gerber, Steve Brown motion to set the mileage consistent with the IRS standard mileage rate. A voice vote was taken, motion carried. The 2020 annual meeting date and time, Nick Filoni and Lisa Hines motion to allow board to set annual meeting date and time to use discretion within same time frame and allowed by law. A voice vote was taken, motion carried. Other items as allowed by law, the adjournment, Lisa Hines, Steve Brown motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:54 p.m. A voice vote was taken, motion carried, and this was submitted by Shane Gerber.
Just need a motion on the minutes.
We accept the minutes as read.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Are you, any of you voters? Opposed, and motion carries. Ted, acting treasurer, please present the 2018-19 audit report, or feel free to defer that.
Sure, thank you, Dana. We will be reviewing the 2018-19 audit report, which was prepared by Sitzberger CPAs and Business Advisors. Just a reminder that this audit report is from the 18-19 school year. The 2019-20 audit report will be submitted it's due by December of this school year. So at this time, I'm going to ask Susan Jarvis to kind of take us through the audit and provide any highlights of that audit report from the 2018-19 school year.
Okay, the district's audit is something we do every year. It's required by law. And it's kind of nice because it keeps you all straight, and they let you know areas that you need to improve upon. So inside the audit, you're going to find a statement of all the funds, the district's accounts, the capital assets, the long-term debt, the employee retirement plans, and other post-employment benefits. They found no significant material weaknesses. However, they noted 3 financial statement findings. I did have a discussion with Phil Greening, who is part of Sitzberger now, and he said all 3 of them, because you are a small school district, you are going to continue to have issues such as this. One is a lack of segregation of duties. He said the only way to correct this finding, which is not a material weakness, is to have additional personnel in the business office, meaning like 5 or 6 people in the business office. And most small school districts cannot afford that. The second one is the financial statement preparation. And he said in order for you to not have that as a finding, you would need to employ an auditor on site. Again, another area where small school districts don't do that. The other one was a no valid special education license. And that was it. So overall, they were very pleased with how our books were presented. And if anyone wants to take a look at the audit report, they can make an appointment with the business office, and we will be glad to show you that.
Thank you, Susan.
A motion to approve
I move to approve the 2018-19 audit report
as presented.
as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Ted, please present the treasurer's report.
Again, I will defer to Susan Jarvis to present the treasurer's report to the board.
See if there's a larger one, thank goodness. This is the unaudited treasurer's report for the year ended June 30th, 2020. The auditors will have this audited after November, and that will be presented to the board after that time. So it lists all of the revenues separated by local sources, interdistrict payments, intermediate sources, state sources, federal sources, and then all other sources. The total revenues for the general fund was $15,062,369.02. For the special projects fund, $21, $30,000. For the special education fund, $27, $1,006,383.57. The debt service funds, which is Fund 38 and 39, $912,467.62. The capital project fund, which is Fund 46, $1,006.84. The food service fund, which is Fund 50, was $393,827.68. And then the next section is the expenditures, which is broken down by instruction, support services, and then non-program transactions. The total expenditures for the general fund was $14,434,927.29 for a final net asset total of $627,441.73. In the special projects fund 21, $779.83 with a net asset total of $29,220.17. The special education fund was $2,717,195.84, and they actually spent more than they received, and they would get a transfer, an interfund transfer from the general fund of $1,710,812.27. The debt service fund had a total expenditures of $995,187.52, which ended up being $82,719.90 more than they had received in revenue, but those funds were in the accounts. The capital funds project had no expenditures this year. The food service fund had $393,412.20 in expenditures, leaving with a net asset total of $415.48. The next section lists all of the interfund transfers, and they all come directly from the general fund. That's the $1,710,812.27 for the special education fund, $410,000 for the capital projects fund, and then $8,001.17 for the food service fund, for a total of $2,128,813.44 of the interfund transfers coming from Fund 10. So the net change in fund balance shows the $627,441.73 for the general fund, leaving with an end-of-year fund balance of $2,292,479.62. The special projects fund 21, $34,957.48. Nothing in the special education fund. In the debt service, and this is Fund 38 only, $28,375.98. And then the capital projects funds of $413,059.52, and the food service fund, $8,416.65. The total cash at the end of this year, June 30th, 2020, was $1,206,838.73. Any questions?
Thank you, Susan. I move to approve the unaudited 2019-20 Treasurer's Report as presented.
Second.
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Now I would like to turn this over to Dr. Connie Valenza, District Administrator.
So we're going to talk a little bit about, part of the annual meeting is both a look back at the past year or the previous year in terms of how that ended from a budget perspective, because clearly that has an impact on the look forward. So in looking back at the 2019-2020 annual highlights, Just a reminder to everyone is if you need that, school shut down on March 16th, 2020 due to COVID-19, governor's safer at home order, and students were involved in virtual classes for the remainder of that school year. Obviously a historic event, certainly something that I have never experienced in my educational career. The general fund unaudited revenues of $15,062,369.02, and then expenses of $14,434,927.29. As we referred to earlier, there was an increase to our fund balance of $627,442. But it's important to note that approximately $300,000 of that was due to equipment that was ordered but not delivered in the fiscal year due to shortages and supply disruption. So the intent at the time was not to add that much to the fund balance. It is a goal, though, to maintain the fund balance where it is. If you remember with our board policy, the goal was to move us into about a 15% as a minimum fund balance, and this brings us really close. Only essential maintenance items were completed. The WRS unfunded liability was paid off. If you recall, we made that decision for the $314,138 and deposited money into the capital improvement plan fund of $410,000. So last year's budget had a mill rate of $7.48. Our third Friday count was 1,018 pupils in attendance. You can see our property values at $949,811,396. And we had at that time 83 teachers, 45 support staff members, and 5 administrators. I want to go back just briefly to the referendum because this is year 2 of the 3-year referendum. It's important because if you recall, in passing the referendum, it kept our levy fairly, flat, but it also allowed for a steady stream of funding to replace as we paid off debt service and that type of thing going forward, with the goal of maintaining educational programming and maintaining our facilities. I mention this because next year will be the last year of that 3-year referendum. And so it will become very important at that point in moving forward to recognize the significant amount of funding that we would decrease if there were not to be another referendum going forward. Just to remind everyone, though, because it's key, I think, in this year with the pandemic, is one of the significant goals of that referendum was to maintain lower class sizes in a high-quality academic environment. So just looking at where we're at, this seems a long time ago. The 2018-2019 school report card had not been issued by our annual meeting last year. So that was issued, but I want to clarify that that is not the report card for the most recent school year. That would be the report card for the school year previous. And so you can see we continued that trend of improving every year. And that's an outstanding thing to show as a district, to show what we've done for our students. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, the state made a decision, and I think rightfully so, that they were not going to be issuing a school report card during the school year because of the significant disruption during the school year. There was no state testing last year, for example. So much of the school report card is based on those state testing results. At this point, there is still the idea that we would do state testing this year. Whether there will actually be a school report card at the end of this year or not, I don't know. So very likely you're going to have a couple years where you won't be able to document and look and see where you compare to the year previous. So very likely next year at the annual meeting, we won't be talking, obviously, about this year's report card. I mention the report card, though, because it does play a role in some of the expenditures we have. If you go back to that initial report card, one of the areas where we were closest to kind of the state average and not consistently above was in the area of reading and language arts with our students. And so one of the major aspects, both of the referendum, but of this year's expenditures, went towards adopting a new reading and phonics program for our students in the PK5 grade levels. And so along came the COVID-19 challenge. Obviously, no one would have predicted that occurring. And in the midst of that, when we got hit with that, we knew that our community families and employers needed us to open our doors to on-site instruction. We heard that loudly and clearly from families, but also we heard that they wanted us to open carefully and safely. This involved a huge commitment on the part of our staff. We owed it to our staff and families to do everything we could to protect them once we made that decision that we were going to open our doors. And we knew that this would require a significant commitment of resources. And I mentioned that because we're talking about the budget. This budget is very much impacted by the increase in expenditures in that attempt to open our doors and protect our staff and our students. Going back, if you remember, we had very much a mixed kind of perception on the part of people in terms of what they were looking for. Families that wanted that traditional on-site experience, families that were looking to have some on-site but also some virtual instruction, and families that wanted to be completely virtual. So that was a big challenge for our school district. We opened up with a model that allowed parent choice in each of those three areas. Again, I mentioned that because the additional expense went along with allowing those three choices for our families. You can see, just as a quick report to the community, at this point, we have 659 of our students in traditional programming, 148 of our students in blended, and 234 of our students in all virtual instruction. So what were those cost increases? We had to hire additional teachers.
Yeah, I just had a quick question.
Sure.
I know at the beginning of the school year, the policy was there would be no changes once parents would submit their request or their preference.
Yep.
Have there been any actual changes based on any particular needs that might have come up after they had made their preferences?
Correct. So we have made some changes where there was room available in a classroom and there were extenuating circumstances. What are extenuating circumstances? For example, under the law, we're required to help provide support for our special education students. So let's say, for example, one of our special education students signed up for virtual and were no longer, for a variety of reasons, able to be successful in that environment. A decision would have been made at that time, potentially based on an IEP change, to move that student into traditional. We had a couple cases where, due to a family work situation, a change needed to be made, but were extenuating circumstances where we made that change. And then there were also obviously cases where students moved into the district or moved out. And we had some cases where students went the other way. For example, made a decision that when we shut down the 4K, for example, that kind of anxiety around, could we, shut down any day? And some parents made the decision at that time, it just was more predictable to have the child at home in virtual instruction. So there have been a few changes, but not too many. I think the big question on everybody's mind is, we always said that would be until semester. So what happens second semester? It's very clear, I think, to everyone that COVID is not going away second semester. At the same time, we did share with our parents that there would be some opportunity to potentially make a change at that point. So unless something happens and we're completely on virtual because of state order or something along those lines, the intent was to send out Again, a request to parents asking what their preference was, and then seek to try and meet those preferences at semester time. That's going to be a complicated process. I'm not sure we'll be able to meet everybody's needs when it comes to that, but that will be the goal at that time.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. So again, what were those increased costs? Obviously, additional teachers to reduce class size so that we could spread our students out. Additional support staff to increase supervision and support student safety protocols. The younger our students are, the more supervision they need to make sure they're maintaining social distance, wearing their masks, following the different protocols we have in place. Additional support staff to increase both cleaning, but also then our health office staff. Protective equipment, masks, thermometers, cleaning supplies, desk barriers. Technology was a large expense. Teacher sound systems, Chromebooks for students, cameras, displays, carport to hold classes outside, summer food program equipment and supplies for distribution, virtual learning training, and additional temporary personnel, for example, our designated building subs that we have in place to cover when teachers aren't able to be here. And then still trying to maintain our focus on curriculum and instruction. We have implemented a new reading program for our grades PK5. The new phonics program has been implemented this year. Obviously, our teachers are doing some significant learning around teaching with technology, providing support and programming for that. Social and emotional learning support, we've certainly had significant conversations around how do we support the whole child in our school as opposed to just the academic piece. And then our overall kind of focus on inclusive and responsive practices for our students, both with special struggling or have different learning styles. We've been feeding the community, and I'm going to let Susan talk a little bit about that in the area of food service.
We qualified for severe need breakfast years ago, and we re-qualified again. This occurs when 40% or more students who qualify for free and reduced lunches participate in the school lunch program. There were over 53% of those students participating in the lunch program, and that's what requalified us for the severe need breakfast. This program reimburses the district at a higher rate, about 30 cents more per free or reduced meal than the regular reimbursement rates. Over 39% of Salem families are low income, and this is up from the previous year. Arbor Food Service program provided 42,054 breakfasts. This is an increase of over 42% from 18-19. 71,008 lunches, an increase of over 10% from 18-19. I want to note that the increases are probably most likely due to the summer food program, which allows free meals to any child 18 years and younger. And when we started in March, it has continued throughout the entire summer. The USDA extended it through the summer, and again they extended it through December, and now they came up and have extended it through June 30th of 2021. So the entire school year, the children will be able to eat breakfast and lunch at no cost.
And that's all students.
That's all students, and even in the community, if the children are not attending, they can still come in and pick up breakfast and lunch meals, which are packed up multiple days, and they're available for pickup. Now, we do have the pickup Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 9:30 to 10:30. However, if that is not convenient, please contact Robin Eisen through Arbor Services at the phone number or the email address that we have on this presentation. And she will make special pickup times for you that's more convenient. And we also want to alert the public that there will be special pickups scheduled for the holidays. Please keep a lookout in your email or your virtual backpack to see when those sign-up sheets are available so that we can have enough meals prepared for that pickup.
Susan, I had someone in the community ask me a question and I didn't have the answer. How is the food packaged in terms of making sure that it's done in a clean way, if you know what I mean?
I'm not really sure what.
Okay, as far as how it's distributed, is it I mean, as far as the containers,
All packaged in containers,
Yes, how's it
plastic
packaged?
wrap. We've had to actually purchase additional containers and paper bags and plastic wrap. If the items are not picked up, or let's say we send out breakfast for the kids in the school and the kids don't want it, everything is removed from those paper bags and the paper bags are tossed. So it is all safely and securely packaged individually with those meals. And the way that the food service packages the meals for pickup is they put it all in a bag and crimp the top so that nothing inside is ever touched. And when pickup happens, people pull up, we have a table outside, and the amount of meals that they want are placed on the table and the people pick them up. Now, we do have some people who are unable to lift the bags, and we will place them in the vehicle for them.
Okay, thank you.
I've been very interested in this process. I've been hearing about this. Would it be possible to observe one morning? To come in and just kind of watch what's happening? Just curiosity.
At a safe distance, you are certainly more than welcome to come and observe it. I observe the first 2 weeks, and I go there periodically, Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, to see how the distribution is going, seeing if anybody has any issues. And the people that come pick up are very appreciative. The pickup has increased as more people are aware that the meals are still at no cost, and they are complete meals. They are a protein, a vegetable, and a milk. So, and that again is at no cost, breakfast and lunch.
So that's Monday, Wednesday, or Friday between 9:30 and 10:30. All right, thank you.
So, and I would encourage you to participate and kind of watch what we're doing within the school or from a distance. It certainly is something that for some families, it may be sensitive to have somebody watching them come and pick up those free meals. So it's just something to be aware of if you're observing.
Would it be best to enter through the main entrance?
Yep,
Okay,
yep, absolutely.
thank you.
All right, so facilities and maintenance, do you want to just touch on some of that was another aspect of our referendum, but if you'd like to touch a little bit on some of the significant projects we've completed related to facilities and maintenance?
I asked Steve to give me a list because I know we've made several presentations to the Board of Education as we've gone through this year because there were so many things that were done. I don't know that Steve ever sits down. He constantly has to find something to do. So he brought me in a binder about a foot deep of all the projects that were completed this year. So I tried to summarize just a few of them on here. Of course, the major project that was done was a significant portion of the middle school roofing. That was completed. Due to the shutdown, the pandemic, additional water bottle filling stations were installed along with touchless faucets and automatic paper towel dispensers. Many areas throughout the building were cleaned, painted. Falcons were added throughout the building. Lockers were repaired in the middle school. Lockers were repainted. The scoreboard is now functioning. It was repaired. The bleachers were restored, rebuilt, and repainted. The stage curtains were replaced. Salem Falcon was reclaimed on the Highway 83 side of the building, so you can see that up there now. And the major water issues were corrected, and water softeners were repaired and replaced. So a lot's been going on. I couldn't possibly list everything, but those were the highlights.
And just a reminder that we are still in the process of the facility study. The Buildings and Grounds Committee met to kind of get a first look at that, kind of doing an overall facility condition assessment and pointing out different issues that the building or facilities may have. You can kind of see the next steps, and that will involve the board in this next process. going through once the educational space adequacy is determined, and that's pretty much been completed, would be kind of a review of options in terms of if the district were to make a decision to go down, for example, the road of completing all of the priority 1 projects, which would be the health and safety type projects, or priority 2 projects, which are more the kind of useful life type projects, so we're nearing the end of that, or some of the priority 3 projects, which tend to be a little more aesthetic in nature, or things that would be nice in terms of a change to the facilities. So my goal would be for the board to kind of really start digging in that facility study. This year has just been crazy. Hopefully maybe November, but it may be something that gets pushed off for a little bit because of the holidays and things like that. But just a reminder that that's still out there. And then just to kind of go over the unaudited 2019 and 2020 revenue and expense summary. Would you like to do that, Susan?
We started out with a little over 1.6 million in our fund balance. Our revenues exceeded our expenditures this year, leaving us with an ending fund balance of almost $2.3 million. This sounds like a lot of money, but it's not actually cash in the bank on June 30th. And it certainly wasn't enough to cover the short-term, the payrolls, so we needed to short-term borrow. But now we're at an ending fund balance of approximately 15% of our expenditures, and hopefully into the next school year, not the 2021 school year, but the 21-22 school year, if we maintain the fund balance, we should not see a need for short-term borrowing. And then, of course, the list of all fund expenditures totaling $18,541,502.68 for the year. This is just a nice little graph of the 1920 expenses by object. Generally, the salaries, employee benefits are the majority of the budget. It's usually around 75%. This district is a little bit under that amount, but that's because a lot of expenses went towards repairing the building, the debt retirement, non-capital objects, a lot of things in there that needed to happen. So as the debt drops off, those areas will get more parts of the budget.
So items affecting the 2019-2020 general operations budget. Obviously, we talked about the revenue was increased by over $713,000 due to the referendum, and $437,544 due to increases in state aid. Expenses increased $828,000, mainly due to increased personnel, teacher compensation schedule, unfunded WRS liability payoff, and COVID-19 shutdown-related expenses. There was a decrease in transportation costs due to the shutdown. Retiree benefit costs of $513,924, which was an increase from last year of $23,844. And then significant technology upgrades and additional purchases due to the shutdown. Our student membership last year, so very different story, student membership increased slightly. Open enrollment out decreased by $157,000, and in increased by $58,000. So good directions on both. You want to try and decrease the number of students leaving and increase the number of students coming in. Back in the day, health and dental costs increased 12%. We would love to see that now. The CPI increase at that time was 2.44%, and food service expenses increased 21%, mostly due to the summer food program. The $8,417 balance remaining in the fund is for the summer food program. So if you want to talk about the 2021 budget summary, I know we talked a little bit about that in the budget hearing, but just to kind of recap.
The beginning fund balance, again, it's at a good amount this year, almost $2.3 million. And the reason it is up is due to the lag in delivery time. We ordered technology and curriculum in March, and we didn't receive it until August. So those expenses that we had anticipated in 2019-20 are getting rolled over to the 2021 school year. The total revenues of $15 million, almost $16 million, is due to the increase in the revenue limit, the state aid increase, and the approved referendum increase. As you know, this year it's going to be $3 million. The total expenditures is up slightly and leaves us with a balanced budget for the 2021 school year. And the reason for the total expenditures is the increased staffing, PPE, technology-related items for due to the pandemic and virtual learning, the new reading curriculum, and miscellaneous maintenance projects, leaving us with the same fund balance at the end of the year as it started with the beginning of the year. This is being very hopeful that the expenses that we're going to incur are not going to be extravagant expenses. So this is our hope for this year.
Can I ask a question about that last slide? My simplistic understanding of finance is a bell just went off when I saw two numbers that are to the penny, exactly the same, from revenues to expenditures. That's
how you want to have the budget. You want to have a balanced budget. You want to be able to get as many revenues in that you are going to be spending.
So this is the budget. What you saw before would have been looking at, you're absolutely right. If our budget ended up exactly this way, you'd go, how could that possibly have happened?
It's not going to happen.
But this is an actual budget, so you would set it up to have a balanced budget that your
Understood.
expenditures would equal.
Thank you.
Yep.
Susan, I also have a question. So if there were, again, simplistic understanding, if there were expenditures that from last year that rolled into the beginning fund balance, so that's going to be an increased cost to this current school year, how is it anticipated that the end fund balance and the beginning fund balance are the same? Aren't you going to have to dip into that fund balance to cover?
We compensated for it when we set up the budget, plus we're getting more money in referendum monies this year. Last year it was 2.57. This year it's 3 million.
Got it, okay.
So the increased amount of income coming in is going to help us offset those expenses that were deferred to this year. So it is, like I said, it is our hope that we will have at least the same ending fund balance that we start with.
We'll be smarter by the end of this.
Well, so in other words, that 300,000 that we ended up rolling into the fund balance, our goal is to leave that there and then pay for those items out of this year's budget.
Budget, right. To keep that
Yep.
balance, right, at that 15%.
And expenditures,
We've got the general fund that is going up. Increase in staff, instructional support, health office, and the 28% insurance increase that we are expecting. The special projects fund is up, and it's mostly due to the student activity accounts being added in there that used to be handled in a Fund 60 liability account, but due to GASB 84, we had to change the fiduciary accounts over to a revenue and expenditure. And a liability account, all you have is liabilities, and they didn't feel it was proper to see the revenues and expenditures go into the same account number. So now it's broken down into Fund 21 for the student activity accounts. So that is mostly the increase in the special projects fund. The debt service, because we paid off the $330,000 from the 2011 building referendum, is much less. Because we're only carrying the energy exemption borrowing. And this year is the last major payment for the energy exemption borrowing. Then it will drop to approximately $90,000 next year and lower every year after that. Food service is up, and this is increased due to the summer food program utilization. I'm going to caution everybody on this amount, even though it is up about $10,000 from last year, it may need to be increased depending upon how much of the community utilizes the summer food program. It does seem to be gaining steam and becoming more popular, and people are understanding that it is meals for their children at absolutely no cost. And we serve enough meals for your children to eat Monday through Sunday. So it's every single day of the week. The USDA has allowed us to feed the children every single day of the week. So if that does happen to increase, we've only gone through 1 month now. We're into our second month of during the school year. If it does seem to be like it's going to be a major increase, I will come back to the board later on to increase that budget. But it should be self-sustaining at that point, so I'm not expecting that the expenses will overtake the revenues. The Capital Projects Fund, we have not spent any money on it, and part of that reason is when we started the Capital Projects Fund, you had to have a 5-year wait. You could deposit, but you could not withdraw. So we made small amounts of deposits over the years, but except for last year when we deposited $410,000. We don't anticipate expenditures, but again, if something comes up through the facility planning that we need to take care of something that the majority of the general fund cannot handle, we may have to dip into that and again do some type of change through the board in order to use those monies. So the gross total expenditures are up $20,228,778.65. However, the mill rate is actually going down. We started out at 7.48 last year. It's going down. We anticipated 7.25, but with all of the changes in the revenue limit, it's going to be 7.31.
So again, items affecting the 2021 general operations budget. The huge one was the student membership. We decreased significantly. In fact, it was 76 students that there was a decrease of. But there were factors beyond the pandemic that impacted that. Our 8th grade class that graduated was significantly larger than the incoming 4K class. Our 4K and 5K classes are both very small this year. That's pretty consistent with other districts. We believe that much of that is due to the pandemic. 4K and 5K are not compulsory attendance grade levels. So as a result, many parents decided to keep their kids home or in consistent child care so that they did not have to worry about abrupt school closings. We did lose a few families that decided to homeschool because of the pandemic, and we lost some open enrollment students, likely again due to the pandemic, but also due to the fact that we had a large open enrollment group of students in that 8th grade class, again replaced by a 4K class that's significantly smaller. There was a significant staff increase to support student learning. Wherever that's occurring, again, whether that's in the home, whether that's in the blended environment or in the traditional environment. Our health insurance rates are projected to increase 28%. Significant increase in supplies, including protective equipment, technology, and curriculum materials, and a significant reduction in our summer school enrollment FTE. As you know, students that enrolled during the summer actually has an impact in terms of adding up to student numbers than to affect the revenue limit. But because of our really small summer school program due to the pandemic, there was virtually zero impact on our budget from summer school this year in terms of additional funding that we would typically get. Last year, I believe we got 19 students FTE, something like that, and then this year we got 0. We ended up getting, I think, enough hours for 1. So I'm going to try and fight that out with DPI, but they're saying no, we didn't even get 1 student. So we'll keep working on that. As you can see, the historical fund balance, we dipped in 2019 down to 12.24. We estimated in that 20, we're going to try and kind of come in that 15% world. That is that area, as you look at our school policy school board policy that we recently passed, was the target of the 15% fund balance. So I believe we will meet that this year. As you see the mill rate components, you can see how they're broken down. Again, moving forward, eventually ours will become just those referendum dollars, and then the revenue limit dollars that come from the state and that can be levied for as those different loans that we have and referendums that we've had drop off. So again, the revised levy, so what gets published in the newspaper is based on the information you have to meet the deadlines at that time. Then as we get more information, for example, student membership, property values, general state aid, other miscellaneous information. So as a result, the sample resolution to levy tax for the 2021 school year actually needs to be revised because now we have all of the information that we have or need available to set that and to reflect the revenue limit decrease of $2,821 from the original amount projected. So at this point, I would ask the electors for a motion to approve the tax levy for the 2021 school year. Following by the motion, there is an actual ballot to approve that levy.
Ms. Chairperson, I move there be levied a school tax assessed against all taxable properties within the district in the sum of $7,390,194, which includes a general fund 10 levy of $6,758,131 necessary to operate and maintain the district school system and to finance the recommended budget for the 2020-21 school year.
Second.
I appoint Jack, Ted, and Nick to do the tabulations of these 5 votes.
Jack, Ted, and Nick. That's easy.
And I'll hold my vote in case there's a tie.
Okay.
We discussed that beforehand, right?
I was kidding.
You were kidding?
I was kidding.
I am such a sucker.
I'm sorry.
I believe
It's
we
just
did.
that there were so few
I
of you.
can't recall.
These are the tabulators.
Yeah, I know.
I'll get it.
Thank you.
Please vote, Jack.
I'm gonna get you for that.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not.
Mail-in ballots.
That's right.
Anybody vote early?
Yeah, check those
Vote
postmarks.
Social distance.
I'm gonna guess.
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess it probably is.
All those in favor? I don't know, just read it.
We have a vote tally of 5 yeses, 0 no's.
Okay, so motion carries. Thank you for all of your extended roles in this.
Thank you. Votes were tabulated and presented by Ted.
Okay, I would now like to have a discussion on school board salaries. Currently, the board is receiving $100 per meeting. So any discussion could take place at this time and/or a motion.
I think it's a reasonable amount.
I motion that we shall pay each board member $100 for every monthly regular board meeting attended.
And could it also be paid quarterly? Perhaps?
I'll amend my motion. Sure, I haven't had a problem with that.
Go right ahead.
Yes. I motion that we pay each board member $100 for each monthly board meeting attended and to be paid on a quarterly basis to be direct deposited if one wishes into their checking account.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. I would also like to have a discussion on reimbursement of mileage for board members. Currently, we go with IRS standard mileage rate.
I motion to keep the current IRS standard mileage rate for mileage reimbursement for the board.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. And I would take a motion on next year's annual meeting date.
I move to set the 2021 annual meeting date to Tuesday, October 26th, 2021.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries.
That was October 22nd?
That is correct.
26th.
6th, okay.
26th, 2021.
Got it, thank you.
I would now entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn the 2020 annual meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and we are adjourned.
At 6:55.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yeah, we just finished our fall play.
To order at 7:02. We have every board member here present physically, myself, Dana Powers, Steve Brown, Nick Poloni, Ted Gergen, and Jack Nicolai. We have no board member remote or absent. Administration present here physically. Is there anyone else over? No. We have Connie Valenza, Susan Jarvis, and do we have anybody remote? Do we have any admins remote?
The administrative team is remote, so it would be
Okay.
Patty
And then
and
we have Brian Sandberg, Patty Fitzgerald, and Judy Mrozkowski remotely. And visitors, please make sure you sign in at the door from the LGI. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion on the agenda, please?
I move that we approve the agenda as printed.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. President's report. We neglected to do a quick thing last meeting, so I'm going to appoint Nick Poloni, congratulations, to chair the Finance Committee. And Ted Gergen, you will be the member on the Finance Committee.
Now, I do also chair the Buildings and Ground.
Yes.
Is that
So
our,
it was more of a question of, do we throw more at the newcomer, or have you chaired it?
oh, it's fine, I don't care.
It was,
Okay, no, perfect, yep.
we can arm wrestle later if you
Yeah,
want.
no, you're good.
And that is, that's all I had. And go on to Spotlight.
We've addressed the incredible stepping up that our staff has done and our support staff has done and our families have done. And I felt like it was time for us to recognize the leadership team for the Salem School District. I want to let you know that they have worked tirelessly and put in incredible hours and are truly the behind the scenes. I mean, I just can't tell you how pleased I am to work with such a great team of hardworking people that have really had to be flexible and creative and work hard to pull off keeping school in session. We're congratulating ourselves. We are at 9 weeks of school. I very much remember the beginning of the school year and people telling us we wouldn't make it 2 weeks, we wouldn't make it into October. It has been outstanding around here, and we would not have been able to do it were it not for the hard work of our administrative team. And we did a little tongue-in-cheek pictures on that, but I'm very appreciative of the work they've done, so.
Knock on wood, Connie.
Right.
Yes.
Clerk's report.
I do not have anything, Madam President, other than to agree with our district administrator, on what you just said.
Thank you. So whenever you're ready, Ted, the treasurer's report.
Sure, I would like to direct everybody's attention to the treasurer's report dated 9/2020. The general fund cash account with a total balance of $372,661.21. The credit card account with $5,942.48. The EBC Flex and HRA cash account with an ending balance of $4,693.36. The Capital Improvement Fund with a balance of $413,254.86. Petty cash with a balance of $400. The LGIP account with a balance of $1,380,625.33 for a grand asset total of $2,177,500 $577.24. I move to approve the treasurer's report as presented, dated 9/2020.
We need to say in the motion the number for the grant asset total, or did he do okay? Okay, thank you. So moved? Second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, and motion carries. Please review accounts payable by either check or vendor.
Sure. I'd like to, again, I think Dana always suggests that everybody takes a look at these accounts payable dated 9/19/2020 through 10/23/2020. These are for the checks numbered 68529 through 69760, and also including checks 202-000112 through 202-000270.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
Normally, within a situation like this, when something is in parentheses, that's cancel something else.
Negative.
I'm looking at page 8, under Warren Electric. I see, looks like 2 payouts, $399 and $245, and then there are the same amounts a few days later with parentheses around them. What does that mean?
Refunds, those mean refunds.
Because I saw a lot of that over the course of looking through this.
Yeah, if there were refunds or if it was a voided and reissued check, you would see the same exact amount in there. So anything with parentheses around it is a negative.
Purity IT, I can assume it's obviously what it is, IT company. What is that service? The Parity IT, it's check number 69706.
What's the page number?
Contracted service that basically got us through until we had Andrew Curzon on board.
Okay.
So essentially, when Shane Morris stepped away as an employee of the school district, Parity had filled that gap until Andrew came along.
So we're no longer using them.
So I'm sorry, what's that?
We're no longer using them anymore?
There may be a case-by-case basis, but it was used heavily between basically July up until mid to late September when Andrew came on.
Okay, because I was going to suggest if we were maintaining to use them, because I mean, there's many service calls, see if there was some sort of annualized contract that we could have with them, you know, but if it's going to be more on a case-by-case basis, I'm not too worried about it then. Okay.
Susan, I do have one question. It appears that Salem participates in the Wisconsin P-card program because there's a credit card balance here. So are there opportunities for the district to provide a district card for teachers when they need to go purchase supplies? So it looks like in this statement, there are about $900 in individual reimbursements, and just like the time to process those receipts, cut the checks, get those to the teachers. Would there ever be that possibility of like a?
There's always the possibility. There's a lot of negatives and positives to having P cards supplied to the staff. The biggest negative that I've heard from other business managers is you can never get the receipts from the teachers. So if there is a way that it can be done that the teachers can have a photocopy automatically of the receipt sent to us, which we are looking into now for doing staff reimbursements, that would make things a lot easier. So it's always a possibility to do a P-card program for your staff. It's just if you want to take the risk to do that. I know a lot of school districts that do it. The larger school districts do issue P-cards on a yearly basis to the teachers to procure supplies. Now, if you were going to do that, you'd also want to issue them some type of a card so that we weren't charged tax.
Right.
one of the major advantages to having the district make the purchases for you is to not have to pay the tax.
So what happens in these cases where, again, it looks like there were about 10 reimbursements. So when a teacher goes out to purchase something, classroom supplies, do they present a tax exempt letter?
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. If they do not produce the tax exempt letter, they are charged the tax, but the district does not reimburse tax as per their policy.
Couldn't it be supplied with the tax-free number?
Yes.
Because that's the way we used to do it. Was we'd have the number with us and it provide for the school, we present it. Now, also with, to follow up on Ted's question, with the increase of effectiveness with electronic communications, quite often you can tell them, just email me the receipt. Is there any way instructions like that could be part of the card, so that when a teacher would take a card with the tax number for a purchase, that the instructions would say, email the receipt to this person, and have them email it to you?
Absolutely. There's a multitude of different ways that you can handle P cards for staff.
So that would take a lot of that time and hassle out of having to get receipts, turn the receipts in. It could all be done right there when the purchase is made, if the card has sort of a preset instruction that says, when you use me, send the receipt to this person.
Yeah, what my staff is currently doing is setting up some, it's a type of electronic reimbursement for the staff. So if they send us their receipts, we can issue the check, automatically go direct deposit to their bank account. So right now we have to actually cut a check for accounts payable, but through Skyward they do have a process that we can get an electronic transmission, go through the proper channels of the supervisor approving it, pull it up into accounts payable, and then issue it as an ACH payment direct to their account.
It makes sense.
So it's just gonna take a little bit to set it up. And once we get that in place, it would make P-cards, electronic P-card purchases a lot easier to do.
It is still, though, having come from a district that does, each of their teachers has a P card, there's a significant amount of work that goes in, because the credit card company then issues a separate statement directly to that staff member. Then that staff member has to reconcile and make sure that they've got receipts attached, and then that has to get turned.
Yeah, I was
into
more
the district
referring to like
office
just
for a payment.
like 3 that you would check out to a teacher in the name of Salem School District. They would present their ID when they go to purchase, rather than, yes, you would not, I wouldn't imagine 100 teachers with P cards.
We do allow them to do, like, for example, the principal's card. Some staff will use the card to do a particular purchase in the district office, for example. If there's something that needs to be purchased, oftentimes they'll use my card. So there is some of that, but we certainly could look at doing some more of it.
Well, we do have accounts set up mostly for maintenance, like Menards and Lowe's and things like that, that they can just put it on the account.
Right.
So that way it's already verified that it is a tax-free purchase. And they come in and they hand us the receipts as they're coming in, and then when we receive the statement from that company, we match them up, make sure they match up completely.
I got one last question. Well, unless, do you have another one?
Nope.
Ted? Okay, so did we just renew our insurance as a district?
Our property insurance, yes.
Yeah, our property and casualty insurance. Is it a possibility for me to get a full copy of that policy, just so I can do kind of an audit for the district as being a licensed agent, just to make sure that there are certain things that are being taken care of on the liability and the casualty part of that insurance?
Certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Ted, go ahead.
I move to approve the accounts payable bills as presented, dated 9/19/2020 through 10/23/2020.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. And please review the special school board meeting minutes.
I motion to approve the minutes of the special school board meeting dated 9/22/2020 as printed and/or amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. And the regular school meeting minutes.
I move to approve the regular school board meeting minutes of Tuesday, September 22nd, 2020 as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Public comments time, have we received any? Okay, I will not go through my spiel since no public comments came in. And Connie, go ahead.
Moving on, again, I won't go over each of these figures because we did in the budget hearing, we've done it again in the annual meeting, but there is a requirement under the law for the board to actually pass the budget. So you are acting as electors of the community during the annual meeting. Now you'll be acting as a board and board members to pass the budget. Just to briefly go through, you can see an increase in the fund balance, a increase in total revenues for a total of $15,991,678, an increase in expenditures, and we talked a little bit about many of those coming from the increases to improve the overall environment and increase the safety to bring students back post-COVID. And then again, with the ending fund balance maintaining, not increasing, but also not decreasing for a balanced budget. Expenditures increases in the general fund, mainly due to staff and support staff. The special projects fund increases there. That area covers our student activity accounts, special education, and our grants. A decrease in debt service as we've gradually paid off the different debt that has been pulled from our levy over the years. The capital or food service increase in that area mainly due to the summer food program. And then the capital projects fund at this point being kind of a placeholder. Some would refer to it as a facilities rainy day fund. So an area that if there were large projects that needed to be done, it could be taken from there. And then for gross total expenditures of $20,228,778, with the mill rate decreasing to $7.31. We went over some of the items affecting the operations budget at our annual meeting. One of the significant areas, and I won't go into this significantly because we'll be talking about our third Friday count later on in the board meeting, the significant staff increase to support student learning. And I added the wherever it is occurring because of the 3 different programming options that we gave our families. The health insurance rates, which I'll also be going over in more depth this evening, and a significant increase in supplies, including protective equipment, technology, and curriculum materials, plus a significant reduction in summer school enrollment FTE. You can see again the different mill rate components. The most significant obviously being based on the referendum that was passed, and then also the state revenue limit that were allowed. So the action item this evening would be for the board to finalize the budget and levy based on property valuation and state aid finalization. The recommendation would be to approve the 2020-21 projected budget and levy, a school tax assessed against all taxable properties within the district in the sum of $7,390,194, which includes a general fund 10 levy of $6,758,131 necessary to operate and maintain the district school system and to finance the recommended budget for the 2021 school year.
I move to approve the 2020-2021 projected budget and levy as levy a school tax assessed against all taxable properties with the district in the sum of $7,390,194,000, which includes a general fund 10 levy of $6,758,131 necessary to operate and maintain the district's school system and to finance the recommended budget for the 2020-2021 school year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, and motion carries.
We have an approval of an elementary teacher contract. If you recall, we had a mid-year resignation. Michael Sanchez is being considered for contract approval. He was a fourth grade virtual teacher in the Bristol School District, a fourth and fifth grade teacher with Kenosha Unified, a fifth grade teacher with La Causa Charter School in Milwaukee, a math interventionist and team leader for Denver Public Schools. He has a BA in International Relations with a computer science minor from St. Mary's University in San Antonio, Texas, a master's in education from Mount Mary University in Milwaukee, and licensure in middle childhood, early adolescence, language arts, and regular education. The recommendation would be to consider a contract for Michael Sanchez as an elementary teacher at not less than $44,882.38 annual salary for the remainder, so this was a partial year contract of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
Connie, explain for those who might be hearing this or watching it or read it in the future, why the contract recommendation where it says at not less than?
So in other words, a contract only establishes the bottom, so you must be paid that. But it doesn't prohibit, for example, if that person picks up extra responsibilities, puts in additional time, there is an ability then outside of the contract to compensate them additionally. The other reason your contract says that is, for example, we have not done any negotiations for this school year. So it is possible, although the teachers then last year signed a contract for an amount not less than, that could be adjusted if, for example, negotiations were to change that amount.
Thank you.
Okay.
A motion to consider a contract for Michael Sanchez as an elementary teacher at not less than $44,882.38 annual salary for the remainder of the 2020-2021 school year as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, and motion carries. Congratulations.
So looking at Third Friday count, this is a very important count for us because our revenue limit is established based on that count. You can see kind of the open enrollment students that come in and from what districts they're coming in. And then you can also, if you go, we'll look in the next page, see those students that are going out. The key number here to look at is the total, that 946 students, and then with some ineligibilities down to 942. That is a significant reduction in numbers of students from last year. I do want to just take a look a little bit at open enrollment out students. You can see we still have a pretty significant imbalance of students leaving the district compared to those coming into the district, although it's tightened a little bit. And again, moving in the right direction when it comes to that. It's helpful for me sometimes to actually put them in classes because when you compare, for example, a 7th grade class one year to a 7th grade class the next year, that's helpful information, but looking at what that class was in 6th grade and now what they are in 7th grade and now what they are in 8th grade allows you to kind of watch some of the trends. So I created another chart for you that follows the actual grades so you can kind of see if there are fluctuations within the actual grade levels as they occur. Just some highlights. As I said, it's a reduction of 76 students in seats Why? Because the 8th grade class that graduated last year was actually our largest class. That was 111, and it was replaced by a very small new 4K class. So that's a significant changeover right there. Our 4K and 5 classes, if you look at them, are both small this year. We believe that much of that is due to the pandemic. 4K and 5K are not compulsory attendance. So as a result, many parents decided to keep their kids home. This is a trend that's taking place across the nation, actually. If you look at districts around us, many districts have seen significant declines in their enrollment for many of these same reasons. We did lose a few families that decided to homeschool, and we've lost some open enrollment students that probably were planning on coming, but then when the pandemic hit, made a decision to stay in their home school. The recommendation would be to approve the 2020-21 third Friday count as presented.
I move to approve the 2020-21 third Friday count as presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries.
Connie, a question for you about that. I mean, this is not about
Yep, go ahead.
this. I know we've talked about it in the past in terms of I don't want to call it a recruiting process, but in terms of okay, I'll use the word recruiting. As we lose students, and if we want to get more students into the district, what kinds of methodology in the past have you used in your previous district when you were up in Platteville?
So I think first of all is trying to understand why students leave.
Right.
And what draws students that make the decision to enroll. And so we know that students, there are some reasons that are kind of beyond recruiting control. For example, a parent works in another district, but they live in our district and they want their children to go to that school district. There are other situations where students may leave because they live on the border in a neighborhood, and I think that's especially problematic for our district because you have 2 high schools that students go to, so that you have students who live in a neighborhood and maybe want to go then into that school district because they know it leads to the high school that eventually they would go to based on the neighborhood they live in. And so that's kind of a problematic factor for us as well. But you try and understand why people are leaving, I think is the first. And then you try and get an understanding of, are there programs that we could offer that might attract students? This year with the pandemic, I would say pretty much all bets are off. A lot of people made decisions around open enrollment based purely on the pandemic. And so it's really hard to quantify that and figure out how you would address that going forward. But I think that the key is going to be to get that information. The other piece, though, in the reality of that we've heard from families anecdotally is that we are a very large school district. And because we're all in one building, to some people, just the size of our district seems a little
large.
overwhelming, especially for a 4K-er, for example. And I think that's one of the reasons why in the facility study, one of the questions was, how can we make our facilities, even though it's still a larger space, seem smaller within those areas? Would it be helpful, for example, to look at a separate office for PK4 on the other side of the building and do some more separation? So those would be all things that we'd want to take a look at, and then making sure the good news gets out whenever possible about some of the things that we're achieving and doing and that might be interesting to see.
And you know what? I mention that only because when you look at the numbers, and I'll be very brief on this. When you look at the numbers in particular for Trevor Wilmot, okay? I mean, these are all excellent school districts, just as ours is, but there are many people who believe that, and that's a much smaller school than Salem Grade School as far as numbers. Yep. But But parents also need to look at class sizes. And then there are other things that they need to look at as well. And I always make sure when people talk to me about the size of Salem Grade School, I say, what are you really asking? So I think anyone in the community needs to know, yes, we are a large grade school, but look at our class sizes, especially when you're looking at other schools, if you're thinking about having your child go to another school.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think we did make steps last year, even before the pandemic, to decrease our class sizes
exactly.
and try and kind of personalize a student's educational experience. I think it is something that we need to continue to attend to. And I think it's very reassuring that at a time where many districts lost more students than they did previously due to open enrollment, we didn't do worse this year. And again, I know that sounds a little, we didn't do worse, but that's important. So I feel like given the situation, we maybe shifted it a little bit, and hopefully we'll continue to move in the other direction. I think, for example, one of the things that we're doing a lot of now is posting on Facebook and trying to get good news out and the things that we're, doing that are great here. I think our community has been very happy with how we've handled the pandemic. And so those are all things that we'll need to work on, making sure people in the community know.
Very good, thank you.
Yep.
There was a mindset in this community for a long time that Salem was too big. And it created such bad PR.
Right.
People just didn't understand that the size of our school doesn't mean that we're out of control. It means we have more to offer.
That's right.
I mean, when you have a school that only has 1 third grade classroom and you have a school that has 3 third grade classrooms, there are shared resources there that we have that they don't. And I think that it took a while. We had a lot of trouble trying to reset that mindset, to stop people thinking that way.
Yep. I agree. And I think, as I look at, for example, how we enter students in the building now, I mean, it does allow for much more of a personal experience for parents dropping their kids off and seeing staff and knowing that the kids are in good hands and things like that. And I think we just need to continue that focus on telling our story and making sure that we're listening to our families in terms of why they might choose another district over ours. And moving forward. I think, the unfortunate part of that is that I think COVID really did a lot of kind of resets for a lot of people. So a lot of the goals, for example, that I had in terms of doing some of the kind of good PR and selling the district got subverted into looking at COVID plans and how do we bring schools, students back into the school. But I think it's definitely should be a focus. All right. This is a revisit, so when we
do a
address this a
motion?
while.
We did, okay.
I'm
Okay,
sorry,
you
I
talk
should have
afterwards.
made those comments before we
worries.
voted, but,
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, go ahead, no problem.
Now, see, I set him
Paused
tonight.
before
There
I
you
made the
go.
motion.
So this is a
you did, I know.
revisit. The board asked me to bring this back. We had made a decision related to restricting outside group access to indoor facilities. And the board at the time had said, let's bring it back and relook at it the end of October. So I brought it back to you. I would suggest that not much has changed. If anything, things have probably gotten worse since the last time we talked about it. But again, I would put it before you if the board wants to consider a change in how we're handling outside groups using our facilities.
Well, right now, society in general is developing a plan that seems to be headed in the right direction. Reducing restaurant seating to 25%, social distancing, masks, the way food is handled, all that sort of stuff. And I can't see any necessity for us to move in a different direction. I mean, it's the way I believe things should be going right now. There should be some rules in place and some restrictions, not completely getting rid of things, but, allowing them to happen, but with reasonable situations, safe situations. And some things are probably not gonna happen the way they used to. And that's unfortunate. I know a lot of organizations love their pancake and porky breakfasts and, you know, being able to have their big meetings here in school, but times have changed. And we need to think safety.
How many months did we say to revisit last time? Was it 3? So should we just say after the first of the year, let's the January board meeting, let's revisit again?
I would say, so the big one coming up is that Westosha Middle School conference has canceled all their fall sports and they delayed winter sports until mid-January. So I think that would be kind of a, you know, that January meeting would be a good one to at least kind of revisit, see where we're at with things at that point.
So I motion to table this discussion until the January regular scheduled board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? We good?
Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Now I lost my train of thought. Motion carries. We're good.
And I'll
Thank
be
you.
quiet.
And everybody shush.
This is the first discussion. There's no vote to be taken tonight. This is the bad news around our health insurance renewal. I just wanted to share that with you. Obviously, this has a significant impact on our budget. Our health insurance renewal is a little different because it renews on January 1. So as many things renew at the school year, our health insurance renewal comes in January 1. So this would be for the next calendar year. It has a significant increase in the overall premium. They're recommending a 28% to 28.58% premium increase. Their basis for that is our continued high loss ratio. So this last 12-month period, we had a 121.05% loss ratio.
Is there any way we can access that here?
Click on the agenda, Jack.
I don't have,
If you click on the link,
I don't have a link.
I'll go
Maybe
to
I've
the
got
top.
the old one up.
I'll go to the top of the agenda.
So essentially, what happened last year is they were able to collect $639,908 in premiums from our employees in the district. But their incurred claims were 1.985165 million. So in other words, you can see that's where that loss ratio comes in. The insurance company is saying we paid out more in claims than we took in premiums. Based on the medical information they have on our staff, they are projecting that to continue. So obviously when they have people in insurance, they're looking at, are these health issues that will suddenly go away next year, or are they health issues that are chronic and will continue, or are there new health issues among this group of people on the horizon? They're predicting that there will be a continued imbalance if they don't raise the rates of the claims to the premiums. And obviously insurance companies are not in business to lose money. So they feel that in order to get where that target loss ratio is, which they say is 92%, so in other words, 92% of the premiums get paid out in claims, that 8% remaining is what the insurance company would like to get to run their business. So that's where the 28.58% increase is. That is a significant increase. I asked about, so what's going on out there besides our district? What's it like for other districts? And she shared that double-digit increases are routine for everybody. The 28% is high, but not as high as some. She talked about a district that got an actual 52% increase. Is that COVID? Certainly, the medical industry is looking to recoup, I'm sure, some of the losses that they've experienced. That loss ratio for our group is not new. We've had that now for multiple years where we've had a loss ratio. I asked what, if anything, our options were. So right now, WPS is saying they're not willing to negotiate that at all. That's what it is. They're not going to come down from that. M3, which is our insurance broker, is in the process of putting it out for bid. She's not super optimistic that somebody's going to come in that would be significantly lower based on our loss ratio, but certainly putting it out there to look to see if there might be a different option for the district to pursue. So that's why I'm saying this is just it's an information item tonight. The board would need to approve a renewal of this, so that would, in most cases, be next month instead. But I wanted to at least give you a chance to take a look at it. Overall, what does this mean? Well, if every person who is presently taking insurance continues taking the same level of insurance, meaning family to family, single to single, it would be a total increase in premiums of about $436,000, a little over that. About $60,000, just estimating of that, would go to our employees and increase premium expenses, and about $376,000 of that would come to the district. So in other words, pretty significant budget impact. I know that you included that when you did your budget, but certainly that would be money we'd rather put to something else if we could figure out a way to get that down. You can see there's an actual, it actually increases our employees' contribution as well. The WPS contribution monthly would be for a family, just for purposes of comparison, $363.47 a month. And then the Select, that used to be, they used to refer to that as the Arise. It's now called WPS Select. A little bit cheaper, obviously, but less choice. So that would be $215.51. I don't know where I got that 518 there, but monthly. So again, this is kind of where we're at. They're looking to see if there might be other options. It's been put out to bid, but nobody's real positive about seeing a significant change in that. So questions or thoughts or?
I'll look into the insurance guy.
Oh, it just, I mean, you look at the loss ratios. I can't argue that too much at this point, unfortunately. And understanding, I'm not licensed in life and health, but being in an agency where there is that, we see this across the board right now for all companies, not just including school districts. So it's been a pretty challenging year for those folks on the health side of insurance altogether. So yeah, it doesn't really surprise me too much, to be honest, just understanding the industry. So
I want to do what's right for the teachers, but wow, you know, this is pretty significant.
It's a significant cost increase. Again, I think, one of the things we've been waiting for is to get all the kind of pieces of the puzzle. This obviously is a huge piece of our financial puzzle in terms of what that looks like in our overall budget, especially in a year where we already have some pretty significant cost increases to try and open school. We are incredibly fortunate to have passed the referendum back 2 years ago that gives us some room. But I also want to be careful about keeping a significant portion of that directed to what we told the community that money would go for. And so trying to be conservative, keep our schools open to our students, which I really believe our families and our employers need us to do. So I think, I feel very comfortable earlier this evening recommending a higher budget, certainly, than I would have liked to, knowing the needs of our community to keep our doors open. Like I said, not just the needs of our families, but the needs of our employers, so that those people can continue to be employed while their children are attending school. And so those are all major factors in this budget. The health insurance, I don't think anyone thought for a minute that there wouldn't be a significant impact on health insurance due to the COVID costs. And some of those are because of the huge losses that medical industry has suffered during the shutdown as well, and some of their increased costs of operation. But again, at this point, I don't have any recommendation for the board other than to see if we have any options, but I did want to put it out there since we're talking about the budget tonight, because it's obviously a looming issue that we'll have to address. Okay. All right. All right, committee reports. Building and Grounds was the only committee that met. You have a set of the minutes. The main thing we did is we got kind of that first preview of the facility study. And this was more of the nuts and bolts aspect of it. It kind of took everything from casement around a window to an outlet plug to the roof to all of the different aspects of the building and kind of categorized them as being in good condition, fair condition, poor condition. It looked for kind of what the major kind of broke down into priority 1, 2, and 3. Priority 1 being life and safety and health issues that should definitely, these could be code issues and things like that. Level 2 meaning these are things nearing the end of useful life that eventually will have to be replaced. And then level 3 being more of the aesthetics, those things that maybe don't need to be replaced immediately, but certainly should be kind of in the back of everyone's minds. So they kind of went through that process. They are completed now with the overall kind of looking at space and what that space means in terms of numbers of students and what our capacity is, and so how much could we grow to meet that capacity. The next stage is to kind of talk educationally. They surveyed our staff in terms of how well our facilities work for them, what are the constraints of our facilities, how do they rate our facilities. And then the final kind of piece of it is to talk about what are some potential options for the district, maybe in 5 years, maybe in 10 years, maybe in 20 years in terms of an overall facility. What came out of the Building and Grounds Committee was a initial feeling where Steve and I, the director of Building and Grounds, need to sit down and really talk about and go over those items and check off what has been done. Is it accurate based on what we know of the facility? And then put it into kind of a medium to be able to come to the full board once we have all of the pieces of that study to get some direction from the full board as to how we kind of move forward with some of those items. So I just wanted to kind of bring you up to speed. That was the focus of that meeting. I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
I know they left some extra literature on the kind of breakdown of what they found. Similar to those, if when we did some other building projects, there's kind of a per list breakdown of the things. It was pretty interesting to kind of flip through and read and think about a little bit in context. So I know they left some of that resource
Yeah, and
here.
I think I have an electronic version, so I'll try and get that out as well.
Other than that, I think it was, it's just one more step moving forward in having a plan. There was not really much more other than a true informational meeting to the committee, really.
I think probably the most interesting aspect of it was the significant percentage of the items that had to do with that older section of the building that we really don't use. And that was one of the, topics of discussion was in making decisions around some of those projects, obviously you're going to make decisions about, is that a section of the building that we're continuing to use? Is it worth that kind of an investment? So I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of it. And, again, it's just I think had none of the issues around COVID occurred, we'd probably be much more further along in this process. But it's still just kind of a reminder that we kind of keep moving forward with it, and there are some pieces of it that are still out that I think will be useful for us. And
I'll say it first, and I even asked this question during the committee meeting. It was kind of staggering to see the conditional grade of the school based upon their assessments, However, in relation to that overall assessment, a very vast majority of it was in the older section of the building too. So you kind of had to take it with a grain of salt a little bit. Once you started kind of diving into it a little bit, you didn't feel so bad about it. But first you look at it, you're, whoa, okay, hold on. So yeah, I encourage you to get that copy of that and kind of look for yourself on there. It's really, I'll say there was a really interesting portion that they did on there where they analyzed each addition that was put onto the school. I hadn't seen that before, and the years associated with it. So you can really kind of go through and get a good idea of, you know, it started as a small building and literally Legoed on the entire rest of the building, obviously, right? So it was pretty interesting seeing that portion in relation to the things they're recommending doing. So I encourage you to look at that for sure.
Yeah, and once we get it finalized and the board's kind of had a chance to kind of dig through it, then, I mean, it should be something that we allow the community to take a look at. I think one of the difficulties now with COVID is that the community doesn't really get in our buildings as much as they used to in the past. And I think one of the nice things about that are some of the pictures and some of the aspects of what are some of the challenges. They did say overall our facility, which it's kind of like, I think as educators we think, oh, it's a C, but they said it was in fair condition and in many places good condition. It just really that section, that older section of the building has a pretty significant impact on the overall issues that are in need of repair.
Was there a discussion, I mean, in the report, and I'll look at it in terms of the past issues with asbestos?
I think that's always a conversation that's being brought up whenever there's an assessment period.
Sure.
So, I mean, that was brought up as there will be assessment being made as things are looked into further, but nothing more than really that.
I'm just saying this is something that we're always looking
They
at, right?
indicated areas that they assumed there would be asbestos removal and that type of thing.
Well, in a
they
building
marked those
that's.
off in the buildings.
The older section,
Yep.
right.
Okay. So then at this point, I'm not recommending any other committee meetings. If we suddenly get something, a significant more portion of the facility study, we may look at something along those lines. If I can get out of COVID world and take a look at some more policies, there may be some policies coming up, but for now, I'm not recommending any other committee meetings. The next board meeting, regular school board meeting, 7 p.m. Tuesday, November 17th. Remember, it's moved up a week because of the holiday, and would be going back to the IMC at that point.
Thank you very much, Connie. And Steve?
Yes, I move that the board go into executive session under the following statute, Wisconsin Statute 19.851C, considering the employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which a governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility. The closed session will be held in the middle school library. Individual contracted staff review. No action will be taken in closed session. The board will reconvene in open session to adjourn the meeting.
I just want to clarify, although the board will reconvene in open session, the video will probably not continue based on that, so the board can actually reconvene into open session in the library at that time. So the stream of the meeting, because there will be no action taken other than to adjourn the meeting, could end at this point. So.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are in closed session. Thank you.
Thank you.